I'd like to start with Lamiya Morshed. Just a few words about Lamiya. So since its inception, Lamiya Morshed has served as the executive director of the Yunus Centre, a global hub for social business activities. For over 23 years, she has been working closely with Professor Muhammad Yunus at the Grameen organizations to implement poverty-focused microcredit programs in more than 45 countries. So it's a pleasure to have you here today, Lamiya. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Morshed.
Hi. So my presentation is basically just a kind of an overview of what's been happening around social business in Bangladesh and around the world. And especially all the kind of exciting developments that have happened in recent times. So I won't go too deeply into any one social business particularly, but just give a sense of where the movement is headed now. So this story begins, of course, with Grameen Bank. 41 years ago, Professor Yunus was trying to help a group of people in a village next to his university, and found that poor people had no access to even small sums of money to support their business activities. So everyone knows the famous story of him lending $27 to 42 people from his own pocket, and finding that that had a huge impact on them because they didn't expect to get that money. Not only did they take the money, they returned it, and were willing to continue to take money in support of their small activities. That small experiment that he started led to the global microcredit movement. Grameen Bank in Bangladesh today is reaching 8.9 million people with small collateral-free loans to support their activities to generate income. And the total amount that the bank has disbursed to date is $22 billion. The loans outstanding currently are $1.6 billion. And an interesting and quite astounding, actually, statistic is the amount of money that the poor people have saved with the bank is now about $2.4 billion. So the entire bank's activities are now financed through the savings that the people within the villages deposit themselves into the bank. So this is a start, and we call this the very first social business. These are some pictures from the bank. And this grew over years to become a global movement. And you now have microcredit programs that follow the Grameen model in virtually every country of the world. There's a specialized Grameen organization, Grameen Trust, where I worked for 14 years, that took the same idea to many, many countries, from Kosovo to India to China to Latin America and so on. One of the striking examples is the program that runs in the US. It's called Grameen America. And this year, in September, the organization will celebrate the reaching of 100,000 members in 11 cities of America. And sir, the figure of disbursement is missing here. Sir? What was the disbursement this year?
About $500 million.
So it'll be $500 million disbursement to 100,000 families in the US. And it's implemented by people who've gone from Bangladesh to these cities in the US in a very different context and with exactly the same methodology. As Professor Yunus and his colleagues were implementing Grameen Bank, they found that the people in the villages faced multifarious problems like lack of access to energy, lack of access to schooling, healthcare, clean water, and so on. And every time Professor Yunus, to address it, instead of having Grameen Bank do that, he created a separate enterprise to address that problem of healthcare or clean water or education and so on. And each time, he created that enterprise to be a self-sustaining entity. And that was actually the beginning of social business. It started very early on, actually in the 70s and 80s, and which led to him over the years creating this concept that you can have a different kind of business that's driven by the intention to solve a social problem, but which is self-sustaining and can be scaled up. And these organizations led to what we now call social business. So there were some conclusions that Professor Yunus came up with as he implemented these programs working with millions of people, is that poverty is not created by people, it's actually created by the policies and institutions that we have built. If given the opportunity, the poor will change their own lives, not through charity, but through their own efforts and in a sustainable manner. So they are hardworking, they're creative, they're resourceful. It's just that the institutions are designed in a way that discriminate against them. The other conclusion that he came to is that the global economic system only recognizes one type of business, that which is designed to make personal money, to maximize personal money. So the rational man or woman who implements that business is driven by the sole motivation of profit maximization. But he argues that human beings are selfish, but they're also selfless. He said the current economic system, the businesses that we have globally, are only built on selfishness in the pursuit of profit maximization. And he argues that a lot of the problems that we see globally, including this massive concentration of wealth, which is a topic I'm sure he will address later, in the hands of a few people, is as a direct result of this, and is creating a very unsustainable global economic system. He argues that we could bring selflessness into play into the business world, the economic marketplace would look very different. So what is a social business? This is a selfless business. It's a non-dividend company that solves human problems. He says that making money is a happiness, but making other people happy is a super happiness. And this is something that current businesses, the dominant definition of business, doesn't take into account. So we have the 7 principles of social business. We have many things that are called social enterprise, social business, social consciousness-driven enterprises, but we have Professor Yunus developed very clear principles to define the kind of business that we're talking about. So it has a very clear social objective as the objective of the business. Second, it is a business, so it has to be financially and economically sustainable. Third, investors put whatever they put in, over time they can take back that money, but nothing beyond that. Whatever profits are made, once the investment is paid back, whatever profits are made goes back into the business to expand, reach more people, and to improve the quality of the product or service. A social business must be gender sensitive and be environmentally conscious. In a social business, the workforce, because we want to attract good managers to run these businesses successfully, they will get market wages and arguably will have better working conditions than a traditional business. And finally, going back to the quote about happiness, why are we doing social business? We do it because it brings us joy. So that's the 7th, and I would say one of the most important principles of social business. So why do you do social business? We've had charity since time immemorial where people can help other people, but the point about social business is that a charity dollar has only one life. A social business dollar, if it's done properly, has endless life. So you get back that money, you can put it back into that business, or you can put into another social business that you care about. The famous example, I won't spend too much time on this, is our joint venture with Danone, which is a leading global dairy company from France, which created with Grameen a social business in Bangladesh to address the issue of child malnutrition. We created a special yogurt that contains the micronutrients that are missing in the diets of children. And the purpose of this business is to take children out of malnutrition. And the point, so Danone put its own kind of technology and expertise to create that, and Grameen put at the service of the company the network that we had in the villages, the farmers who could produce the milk, the women in the villages who could sell this milk door to door. And so far, as of October 2016, we have 300,000 consumers around Bangladesh, something like 100,000 yogurts sold daily at the cost of 12 euro cents each. And each serving provides the 30% of the daily zinc, iodine, iron, and vitamin A requirements. There are 300 direct jobs created, and there's been an impact on both farmers and the Shakti ladies, who are the micro-entrepreneurs who sell this door to door and who receive an income through this work. The way that we would measure success in social business, since we are not talking about the dividends that it brings to the investors, is what the impact of the business is. So Johns Hopkins did a study over a period of 1 year of Grameen Danone to look at the impact that the yogurt had on the health of the children. So children aged 6 to 9 around the factory where the Grameen Danone yogurt is being produced were taking this yogurt every day the fortified yogurt, versus another control group of kids who were taking a similar yogurt which was not fortified. And in just 1 year, Johns Hopkins found that the children were performing better, both in the cognitive tests, with testing problem-solving abilities, and also in terms of height and mid-arm circumference. So just the impact at the end of 1 year. So since we are, these are some pictures of Grameen Danone. So you see the kids having the yogurt, the women, the mothers, and the women who sell it door to door in the villages. Another example that we talk about, this is that is not a joint venture with an international company. It's a standalone social business that we created, and it's one of the largest social businesses we have in Bangladesh and one of the first to break even. It's a series of eye care hospitals treating people with cataract problems who have impaired vision, and it's a very common problem in Bangladesh. And it basically works on a framework of the people at the top who can afford it paying more, and the people at the bottom paying less, on a cross-subsidy model. And we have created 3 such hospitals, and a 4th is planned later this year. And more than 1 million patients have been reached through these hospitals, and it's our social business in Bangladesh that broke even the earliest. So you have pictures of the 3 hospitals gaining operational profit 2009, 2010, and 2015. And these are some pictures of the hospitals. This is the one in Bogra, this is the one in Barishal, and in Takurgaon. So we have big established hospital based on social business principles that's doing well, and we're hoping to expand to another in the south. Another one that we have as a joint venture is Grameen Intel Social Business. This is with the American IT firm, and they have been working on creating solutions for maternal health care through IT, as well as for agriculture. So they've developed a soil testing application which farmers in Bangladesh are using to see the quality of the soil, so they know what kind of inputs are needed to have good outputs for that particular soil. And the new one that we're just launching this year is the COEL Maternally Wellness Bracelet. And this is a special bracelet that's designed to do 2 things. One is that it detects levels of carbon monoxide in the atmosphere, because in Bangladesh and India and other countries, because of the cooking indoors, there are very high levels of carbon monoxide, which you can't smell, but which are poisonous to the mothers. And this, a lot of health problems develop as a result of this. This bracelet will alert the woman who's wearing it to the levels of carbon monoxide, and if it reaches a level that's dangerous to the health, it will go off. In addition, a feature that was added to this, and this will probably be a primary objective of this bracelet, is that it's for the mothers, pregnant mothers, and in the local language, it will have messages, 80 messages in the current design, to go off during the pregnancy of the mother to let her know when she has to have particular screens, when she has to have particular vitamins, when she has to have particular checkups, and so on. And so this is being launched this year and is one of our exciting new social business products called COEL. So in Bangladesh, we have a series of joint ventures like this, but now the program, the social business model has gone in Bangladesh itself, one other thing I would like to add is about the creation of a social business fund that is financing non-Grameen social businesses as well. Many NGOs that want to now create social businesses, they've been working in the field but want to have sustainable models. So Grameen Telecom Trust is one organization that's financing a lot of standalone social businesses, and it itself operates as a social business. That means the investors do not get any dividends beyond recouping their investment. Another social business program in Bangladesh that is becoming a major new strategy for the 2nd generation of Grameen families is the Nobin Udyoktas program. This is a program that is providing small amounts of equity to young entrepreneurs who want to start their own businesses, both in the cities as well as in the villages of Bangladesh. And this is the children of the Grameen borrowers, they were coming out of these families and looking for jobs that don't exist. So Professor Yunus said to them that your mothers didn't struggle these decades to get you education, to get you this to where you are, so that you would be looking for jobs that don't exist. And so we will give you the funds to start your own business. And the way it works is that the young people put in some of their own money, and Grameen organizations, the Grameen Social Business Fund for Entrepreneurship, puts in a fixed amount of money. And the two together is the seed money to start up a business. And over time, they will repay the equity back to the Grameen organization and become the full owner of the business. And in just 3 years, we have supported 16,000 young entrepreneurs in Bangladesh with this from our social business fund, which doesn't seek to do anything except to support these young people. And this is becoming a major new direction for Grameen. Globally, Yunus Centre is the organization that I represent. We are working to spread the social business concept and practice, and we do this through visit programs, we do this through global networking, we organize something called Social Business Day, we do publications, and we support Professor Yunus in his work and travels. So this is one organization that's working to spread social business. The other is Grameen Creative Lab. The founder of Grameen Creative Lab, Hans Reitz, is right here. They work also very closely with us to educate people and companies around the world on social business and organize major events, do consultancies, support universities, and so on. And they are the organizers with Yunus Centre of the Global Social Business Summit, which we've had 7 of so far, and this year it's going to take place in Paris, the 8th Global Social Business Summit, and I'm sure Hans will talk about that later, so I won't dwell on that. We have another organization within our family of companies called Yunus Social Business, and they're working now in many countries to take this idea, and they create a fund, and then they create a training program, accelerator to help young entrepreneurs create social businesses. And they're working now in Albania and other Balkan countries, in Brasilia, in Colombia, in Haiti, in India, in Tunisia, in Uganda, also in Kenya and Rwanda. And this is also a major new direction for us. So far, YSB has supported 500 entrepreneurs to create social businesses and have invested in 40 social businesses, which in their assessment has reached and impacted on the lives of 1.2 million people and created 10,000 higher income jobs. One example that I wanted to mention today is a Canadian company that has taken on social business. Inspired by the Grameen Danone story and others, they've created social business within their own company to address the issue of food wastage. And the company is called Bon Bien, and it's basically making a host of products, nutritious products like soups and others, to tackle this issue of food wastage, especially fruits and vegetables that are wasted and not sold in the market. And the company itself is hiring, as part of their business model, young unemployed youth in France, and now also going to other countries like Belgium, Greece, and Morocco. And they have also developed a toolkit within their own company. This is taken from their website on how McCain employees and investors can create their own social business, and have taken on this mission to create social businesses that have nothing to do with us at Grameen. They're doing this independently. Danone Communities is, again, this is an example of how the small project we did together impacting on the bigger company is that Danone created its own social business fund. Again, it's run independently of us in Bangladesh, and they are now working to invest social businesses in many countries. And they have 9 social businesses in 8 countries and focusing primarily on water and healthy nutrition. The impact already through these businesses is on about 1 million people, according to their website. One other thing that the example of Danone, McCain, and others has resulted in is this creation of something called a corporate action tank, where businesses have come together to see how they can work together to create social businesses. So the purpose of it is how companies will brainstorm within their companies and with others on how they can bring social business as a way to help the communities in which they operate. And the first social business corporate action tank was developed in Paris, spearheaded by HEC Paris and the Action Tank on Business and Poverty. In India currently with Tata Trusts, which is a leading business group in India. In Brazil with big companies such as Ambev, and currently also underway in Japan. And below you'll see the logos of all of the companies around the world now that are engaged in this idea of corporate action tank. And this is one very interesting way that businesses themselves are getting involved in spreading social business and doing it through their own interests and initiatives. Another dimension for the spread of the social business idea is through our academic network. So we have a growing number of universities around the world that have started bringing in social business as a concept into their curricula and into their teaching, and also into clubs and competitions that the university is running. We have 34 such universities around the world, including, of course, HEC Montréal, and several more in the pipeline. This year, I think we'll be signing for 8 more centers to establish. And this is also very encouraging, because this very often comes as a result of the interest of students who want to see how they can get involved in social business. We held last year the Social Business Academia Conference in Paris. It was hosted by HEC Paris, and we had 125 academics from 15 countries attending, including most of our YSBC Yunus Social Business Center partners. And this year, the Social Business Academia Conference will take place again in Paris within the framework of the Social Business Summit that Hans will talk about later. This is a picture of the launch of the HEC Montréal YSBC. We signed with Luciano and Joanna in Paris for the launch of the center here. And one of the big activities, of course, is the social business creation competition that we'll hear about later from Maitai. Another dimension for the spread of social business is youth activities. Many young people around the world are organizing themselves to spread this. They see the limits of traditional business, and they also, not just the limits of traditional business, but also that traditional business in many cases appear to exacerbate social problems, for example, that of the environment and so on. So we have in Bangladesh, a social business youth alliance, young people who've organized themselves across the country to spread the idea of social business and have now gone global. In addition, we have other organizations like Make Sense, Yunus in Youth, My Vision. These are all youth groups organizing themselves spontaneously to spread the idea of social business. Make Sense is a French-based organization that has become, again, started very small, but has now become a platform for 25,000 young people in 45 countries who are now supporting through this platform, mainly through the internet, 1,300 social businesses, and is becoming a big force for the spread of social business globally. So those were some examples of how to scale up the activities that have taken place, but what can individuals do if they would like to support social business? One is awareness, this introduction into schools and colleges of the idea of social business. The other is competition, which HEC Montréal has, but we've seen that this becomes quite a powerful way to spread the idea, where people bring their ideas, and the best ideas are rewarded either with startup money or through recognition and publicity and so on. There's something called design labs that we do in Bangladesh that's become a good platform for the spread of social businesses, where young people bring their social business ideas for pitching, and where investors and subject area specialists will attend, will analyze and look at social businesses and support the setup of new ones. The creation of funds, which we talked about, this is the best way, because as long as social businesses don't have access to the appropriate type of financing, this will be a limitation. But as we said, we saw that Danone Communities, Credit Agricole, YSB, us in Bangladesh through Grameen Telecom Trust, we are creating social business funds that will provide that very much needed first money for social businesses. And then events such as this one, the Social Business Forum here, the Global Social Business Summit and Social Business Day, which we organize in Bangladesh. I want to, towards the end of my presentation, mention a few of the interesting collaborations that we've had in recent days, which, sort of unconventional partnerships, one would say. For example, the IOC last year invited Professor Yunus to address the entire session of the IOC before the Rio Olympics on this issue of social business, and they have pledged to make social business a part of their global movement. Professor Yunus was also a torchbearer at the Olympics, and that was a very exciting moment for us in the social business movement. And this has also led to us for a very important partnership with the Mayor of Paris. Paris is the candidate city for the 2024 Olympics, and the Mayor of Paris actually met us in Brazil during the Olympics there to invite Professor Yunus to come to Paris to launch a social business house in Paris. It's this building that you see in the picture, Les Canaux. It's a very historical, it used to be the building for the management of canals in Paris, in the 19e arrondissement, very fashionable part of Paris. And this entire house has been dedicated for the spread of social business. So they have put social business as a central part of their candidacy for the 2024 Olympics. But beyond that, the city has committed to make social business a major policy a way forward to address issues of youth unemployment, refugees, housing, and others. This is a picture of Professor Yunus on the balcony of Les Canaux with Anne Hidalgo, who's the mayor of Paris. This is another view of Les Canaux. And this is very exciting because we're right now in the process of registering a Yunus Centre in Paris to work on these issues. We also have this idea of a social business city, which is a city that takes social business. I mean, Paris is like that, although it hasn't announced itself as a social business city. But there are other cities like that. For example, Barcelona, which is creating a social business fund where universities are taking social business into their curricula, where social business exists in practice, examples of social business. And Barcelona is one of them. And one of their partners is Barça, the famous football club, where Professor Yunus visited and was made a kind of an honorary team member there. You can see he's wearing the jersey. The United Nations has adopted FAO. The Food and Agriculture Organization has adopted social business as one of the ways to tackle the SDG on zero hunger. This was launched last year as well. Global advocacy continues. Your Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, is a big fan of social business. And when Professor Yunus attended the One Young World last year, he actually tweeted about, it was the only tweet he did from the event, was about the lessons of social business and how important that is for the youth of Canada. Professor Yunus is also a member of the UN Sustainable Development Group Advocates. This is, of course, the charter that you know about, the goals that have been set out for the world to follow to achieve the main social goals by 2030. And it's a group of eminent citizens who will bring social business, the message of the SDGs to the widest possible audience. And this was started with Ban Ki-moon, but has been continued by Antonio Guterres. This is a picture from Davos, where he met with the SDG advocates there. We actually consider that social business will be a very important part of the plan to achieve the SDGs, both because they have impact, but mainly because they can scale up and be sustainable. So that's a very key thing. And as part of our commitment to the SDGs, the focus that Professor Yunus has laid out in his vision is that of 3 zeros: the zero of poverty, zero unemployment, and zero net carbon emissions. So these are the 3 things that we, through Yunus Centre and through our work globally, are focusing on as part of our contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm excited to announce also that Professor Yunus' new book with the same title will be coming out later this year, where you can read more about the issue of the vision of 3 zeros and what are the most effective ways to achieve that. Finally, I would like to invite you to our global event. This is called the Social Business Day. It takes place in Bangladesh on the 28th and 29th of July. I hope some of you can attend that. It's a gathering of all of our global partners where we meet to exchange experiences, mainly to energize each other, because we are working on some very pressing social issues of the day, and time seems to be running out. So we get together to learn from each other, but mainly to inspire each other. And I hope some of you will come. There's some pictures I have here of our newly built Social Business Convention Center, which will host the Social Business Day this year. It was built just last year. We couldn't have the event last year, but this year it's ready to host the event next month. So I hope some of you will come to that. I would just like to end with a quote from Professor Yunus, which is that when we delink the idea of personal profit from business, it becomes all about using our creativity to solve human problems. And this goes to the core of what human beings are about. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you wish, we're going to take some questions.
Okay,
So
sure.
if you want to come, it's as you wish. All right, so we have time for some questions.
Any questions? No, they're all saved for Professor Yunus later on.
So actually, I have one. So
Okay.
when you engage with all those corporations all around the world, how is that the process? So actually, those companies, they come to you, you go to those companies. So how does it work if any Canadian organization here, they want to participate?
For each of the collaborations that we have had with the different companies, it's all happened in different ways through random encounters. The one with Danone happened during a lunch encounter with the chairman of Danone when Professor Yunus was visiting France. Veolia, which is a water company, they came to Bangladesh. BSF was through Hans's connection with them. BSF, the big chemical company who's producing with us this special mosquito net that as a social business in Bangladesh, that was through his connection. So each one has had a different story. I don't think there's a standard way. Many companies have come to us because they've heard about the other partnerships and relationships. Like McCain was very excited about the Danone company, and they decided to do that. They're doing with us through YSB in Colombia, but the main social business they're doing is with their own company, that they've decided that this is the way that they would like to implement their social responsibility. And since we are talking about trying to solve global poverty, I don't think there's any one way. I mean, I think they're partnering with different people around the world. Some are doing it standalone, many with us. If there are Canadian companies who are interested, they feel free to get in touch with us. We may find that it might work out as a better partnership with one of our YSB partners. It might work with us in Bangladesh. So we're kind of open. I don't think there's a kind of a fixed way. So.
Okay, thank you. I think we have a question there. Oh, there first, please.
Good morning. I'm coming from Mexico. I would like to know how you decide to work with the Carlos Slim Foundation, and so far, which are the main outcomes of that partnership? Thank you.
The one that I'm aware of is that the Carlos Slim Foundation financed a large Grameen microcredit program in Mexico, which was for many years implemented by Grameen Trust, the organization in Bangladesh that was created to spread this Grameen methodology. But a few years ago, they are now implementing themselves. Grameen Trust is no longer a part of that partnership, but Carlos Slim Foundation is now implementing that Grameen type microcredit program through their own means, which is the way it works in many cases, that we go and give kind of turnkey support, and then when that's no longer needed, we withdraw and they implement. I don't think we have any social business partnerships with them yet. Maybe there is, but maybe in the future.
Thank you. Please.
Hello, my name is Alain. I'm from Montreal, working with L'Esplanade, which is a social business incubator, and also with the Mars Centre from Toronto. Two questions. So thanks for the presentation. It's very great. On the social business venture fund side, the numbers you pointed out, 16,000 social business leaders or entrepreneurs is staggering. This is great. What kind of support, in addition to the fund, are you providing these young entrepreneurs?
So it's quite intensive because it's a joint venture with them, because the fund is putting in money, they're putting in money, and there's a very strong process of hand-holding. They're basically, the Grameen organization supports them through the entire setting up of their business, through any problems that they face. They may face failure, but the commitment from Grameen is that we are with you regardless of failure, because businesses will face failure at some point. Our aim is to establish them. Since the fund is not interested in making money, our entire objective is to establish these young people into their businesses. So it's very intensive, and there's also a very intensive monitoring process whereby the young entrepreneurs are sending daily SMS messages on their phone, which all aggregates into a dashboard that we can monitor centrally to see how they're doing. And if there are things that, if there are sudden drops in their sales or their businesses, that's immediately a kind of a red flag for the people. And we have offices now in the field as well to provide technical support to businesses that face problems. So it's pretty intensive. It's a very close relationship because since it's a joint venture, because we've also invested, we are as vested in the success of the business as they are. So it's, now all of there are 4 Grameen companies that are doing this, and they all have established offices around the country to be there to help these entrepreneurs as they need it.
And my second question relates to the investor side or companies. There's obviously the definition of social business, as you pointed out. There's also the major trend about impact investing from investors. How do you see social businesses, impact investing, all these different definitions? You know, is there a cleanup of definitions happening in the industry, or how do you see the progressions or the trends regarding the investors going to be more active?
We think it's important to define the social business, what we mean, and I think that zero dividend definition is very key, because what Professor Yunus has said before is that for businesses that mix up the profit making with the social impact, it always seems like the profit making trumps every other consideration. So in the case of the social businesses that we're doing, we just take that out of the equation. It has to be sustainable, it has to return the investment to the investor, but it's all about the impact, and every aspect of the business is designed to maximize the social impact. So while you have social enterprises, impact investing, venture philanthropy, many things that are in kind of related, we always say that social business is a very clearly defined subset of social enterprise, where the definition is that there will be zero dividend to the investor. And I think it makes it clear then what we're talking about and removes confusion. So, thank you.
Thank you. I think we have two more here.
Yeah, hi. My name is Joseph from HEC Montréal. I'm quite excited to read Professor Yunus' next book, which talks about zero emissions. Because my guess is that this is really kind of the innovation in terms of, developing social business. And so I was just wondering if you had some initial examples, experiments that you've been getting involved in terms of this more kind of environmental sustainability and zero emissions.
I think you'll have to wait for the book to read the book. Coming out quite soon in September. But there are some very compelling examples, including, Grameen Shakti in Bangladesh is one example, the renewable energy company that was established by Professor Yunus and which very rapidly grew to reach millions of, more than 1.5 million households with solar panels, and on a sustainable basis. That's one very powerful example that's elaborated in the book. But there are also many others like that. But what we're saying is that for social businesses, one of the principles is this environmentally conscious, is that conventional business in this mad pursuit for profit has really thrown that consideration out in many cases and has created a lot of the problems we see. So we are saying that it has to be a central consideration in the design of social businesses. So,
okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Hi. So I work in anthropology and like community-based conservation concerning the Kenyan Maasai, but then I used to do some work in India for a very large NGO, and one of the things I always felt was that this profit-making thing, of course, is one aspect of it, but how do you align incentives, for someone that is trying to maybe tell a story or get their people to engage within a program, rather than actually achieve tangible impact? That I don't know if that's a clear
I'm not
question.
clear.
So I mean, someone comes to you and says, "Oh, we'd like to do something with you," but it's not necessarily a question of the incentive isn't purely impact based, right? There's always something, either pushing their own product, or it could be about just a story that's really nice for their the kind of corporate setup. And I guess the second question is just about realizing the value within the social business space, because you've got so many people you've got all these businesses that are doing wonderful things, like you talked about the the band that alerts women to high carbon monoxide levels. So that's an amazing thing that obviously has huge contributions, everything from the savings in the healthcare system, and so how do you realize that value, and how much of policy directive is there?
I mean, the example of Bangle, and this is something also that Professor Yunus has been advocating for years. He's saying that the IT companies, the really innovative companies, have always been, again, driven by primarily the need to be profit maximizing. And because of that, the consideration of the social impact of their product is a kind of a secondary consideration. He's always said that if you put the social objective or the social impact at the center of the design process for these IT companies, there's nothing that can't be done, because the technology is there, the innovation is there, the creative power is there. And this is an example of that Grameen Intel, since its main objective is how can I impact on the maternal health of pregnant women, that they put all of their resources in the design of that. And so I think that's what's the exciting thing about social business, is that it brings out the creative powers of the people engaged in this enterprise entirely to serve the human social purpose of it. And that's what we're trying to argue. And to the extent that many companies are now being impacted by this, I consider that that's been a success. So.
Thank you very much. We're going to take two more. We have one there and the other one on this side, okay? Yep.
Hi, my name is Kara. I work at a company called Credo, a social business here in Montreal. I had a question concerning your corporate partners or corporations which you partner with on CSR and social business initiatives. How, given that those 3 zeros are some of your priorities for business, for the role of business in society, how do you ensure that your partners work within their business models to achieve zero poverty and zero emissions, for instance, understanding that a lot of normal business as usual is a cause of a lot of the poverty and inequality that we see today?
So when the business have approached us in the past, I mean, we've kind of decided which ones made sense for us to do. If what they were trying to do and what we were trying to do, there was a match, especially in the creation of these social business joint ventures. It was kind of a process of consultation on two sides to see if this is something that we would like to work on together. There's certain companies that we'd rather not work with because we know that their product is outright bad for health. For example, a tobacco company or maybe an armaments company like that. So we have kind of our own guidelines about who we would work with and who not. But one of the messages that I've understood from Professor Yunus is that companies should do social business alongside. We're not telling them to shut down their profit-making businesses. They do that, but they do social business on the side. And many companies will find that this is what becomes attractive for them, and then they will allow this one to grow. So we have broad guidelines, I think, within our organizations about who we would or would not work with. But it's not that we're telling them that they should run their traditional business in the way we would like necessarily. But that for the purposes of our partnership, that we are working together towards a common social objective.
Thank you. And we have a last one there.
Hi, my name is Ana Sofia. I'm a student here in Montreal from Lima, Peru. In the case of social business initiatives, such as the COEL bracelet that you mentioned, how do you balance the knowledge and the expertise of larger companies, as well as your knowledge, with the local knowledge and context of communities you're working with? So how is that balanced throughout the creative process?
Yeah, so this has taken quite long for them to develop. For example, the 80 messages that are in the bracelet, it's in local language. And they did a lot of work to find out how the messaging, even Professor Yunus gave inputs on what makes sense and doesn't make sense in a Bangladeshi context, because the designers were coming from Silicon Valley for this product. And they actually did a lot of work with the local communities to make sure that the messages were in language and presented in a way that makes sense to them and they understand. So I think for this particular product, there was quite a sort of deep interaction with the women in the communities to understand their concerns and to make sure that these messages are not kind of really de-linked from their day-to-day lives, that they can really understand it. So in each of the countries where they want to deploy this bracelet, they go through a similar process working with the communities to do that.
Yeah, please go ahead. No problem.
Yeah. So in terms of the knowledge that is being transmitted through these bracelets, for example, because especially in terms of maternal health care, there's a lot of local and traditional knowledge that I'm sure these mothers are aware of through their just local context. So is that taken into account in the message building more than the message transmission?
So far it's only been done for Bangladesh, and I know that when they've developed those messages, they really took into account the practices in the communities and in the villages and spend time with families in the rural areas to do that, and if they deploy this in other countries, they would do the same thing. Because I don't think you have a one-size-fits-all for mothers in different countries. So I sit on the board of that company with Professor Yunus, and they mentioned that wherever they want to deploy this, they would have that very deep process of understanding what it is, what are the practices for moms in those communities.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.